Hello and welcome to this video, which is part of a playlist called Academic Study Skills for A-Level English Literature. And this playlist is designed to help you make the leap between GCSE English and the more independent study required to succeed in A-Level English Lit. And today's video is showing you how to evaluate online sources, because there's so much material out there on the internet which is really helpful for studying A-Level English Lit. However, there's lots of information there which is not so helpful as well. So today's purpose is to help you navigate that quite complicated world of online sources so that you can know which sources are going to be useful and which sources are worth taking the time over. Why use online sources? Well, there's so many different reasons here. First of all, they're easy to access. If you were to use a book, for example, you might need to go to the library, you might need to buy it online, you might need to ask your teacher if you could borrow it, and then you might be sharing it around the class. Whereas online sources are really easy to get hold of and you can all read them at the same time, and you can read them at whatever time you choose. So I wouldn't advise it, but if you were studying late at night, you could still access these sources. They can be free, sometimes you do need to pay, but often what I find is that a lot of very well-respected literary critics do have work that's freely available online, and that's absolutely brilliant and a really good opportunity for you to engage with the up-to-date, the current debate about the topic that you're studying. As well as that, they can be very high quality. As I've said, a lot of the leading literary critics do make their work available online, and they do provide up-to-date ideas. When you're starting to study a text, and if you do a quick Google search, what you'll find is that there's a whole range of different options available to you. And what I would say is maybe start off with a GCSE or A-level kind of revision website. So the main examples that people look at are listed here. So you've got SparkNotes, Shmoop, York Notes, Cliff Notes, Wikipedia. And these are all really good ways of understanding who the characters are in the text and what happens in a text. So, for example, the plot of Othello is very complex. And as you're reading it, you might forget which character does what, or what happens where, or which character knows what bit of information. And so having a quick read of the relevant scene summaries on something like SparkNotes can be really helpful to you. What I would say, though, is that this is just a starting point. Even for GCSE study, these websites don't necessarily provide the depth of analysis or the depth of knowledge that you're going to need to succeed and get those top grades and that deeper level of understanding. So I would say when you're initially researching, go to these websites first, have a read, have a look around to familiarise yourself with the text, and then move on to something that's going to give you a deeper understanding. And to get those texts that are going to help you to push your understanding a little bit further, the first thing I would do is just do a quick search on an online search engine. So the one I've put here is Ecosia because it plants trees. So you can see that in my example, I've just quickly typed in presentation of Iago in Othello. And it's spat out a lot of different options for me here. So we've got at the very top an essay about Iago from ukessays.com. Now, as a teacher, as someone who's experienced in using online sources, I definitely wouldn't look at that. It's probably going to be a website which is selling essay writing services, and it just doesn't really interest me particularly. As well as that, it's probably an essay written by another student, which, whilst that is wonderful to read work written by your peers, you don't necessarily know if you can trust it. You don't know what the quality of that essay is going to be. Now, if you look down a little bit, there's one website that I really would trust here, which is the British Library, and that's giving you a character analysis of Iago in Othello. But how do you know which of these websites is going to be useful if you don't have the experience that I have of reading a lot of these things online already? Well, if you go onto the website, so here's the British Library one, you can tell by lots of the information that's given around the essay about how valuable and useful that essay is going to be. So first of all, in the top left-hand corner here, you can see that this essay is provided by the British Library. Now, I know from experience that the essays provided on this website are incredibly useful. We also know that the British Library is a national institution and is a scholarly and academic resource provided for schools and universities and so on. And if you're not sure about the quality of a source, just ask your teacher, just say, look, I was on this website, it was called this, I don't know, British Library or whatever, you know, have you looked at it before, is it useful? And ask your teacher for a little bit of guidance. As well as this, you're going to want to look at who's written the essay. So it says here that the article was written by Alexandra Melville. I'm none the wiser, I've never heard of that person, I don't know who they are, so it's hyperlinked, so I click on the link and it says Alexandra Melville is a writer and educator. She's taught English at sixth form and secondary schools in London. Okay, so as an A-level student looking at this, you know that this has been written by a teacher. So this has given you some information that's going to suggest, well, if this person's a teacher, then they probably know what they're talking about. And then it says that this Alexandra Melville has created education packs for years 4 to 6 for Fuel Theatre. So she's not just a teacher, but she also provides information for other institutions as well. And she's currently writing GCSE literature resources for HarperCollins Education. Now, if you were to Google HarperCollins Education, you'd find that it's an extremely respectable publisher. So all of these details here, the writer's credentials, are presented in order to tell you that this article is going to be good quality, that the person knows what they're writing about, and that because they're a teacher, it's going to be written in a way which is accessible for you as an A-level student. So it's really helpful to follow the hyperlinks within the website and to find out more about the writer of the text. And as we scroll down the page on this British Library website, there are some other indications that this is a good quality piece of work. Just the whole writing style, the vocabulary, the syntax shows you that it's written by someone who knows what they're doing. As well as that though, if you have a look at the way the quotations are referenced, it gives you a kind of an appearance of reliability as well. So they've got their quotation about Cassio, and then they've indicated that it's from Act 2, Scene 1, line 164. And it's quite an academic style of referencing there. And that is a little bit more evidence that this person is an academic. They are a scholar, they do know what they're doing. As well as that, all of these links down the side show you that this website provides a whole range of information on a range of texts. You know, so these have been chosen by the British Library as essays which are going to be useful for people who are studying all of these plays. So this is a really reliable website, and I would really strongly recommend using the British Library resources. Now, another link that I mentioned before, the UK Essays.com, that popped up is a little bit different. So if you have a look at this, instantly the screen is more cluttered. There's going to be a lot more adverts on there asking you, to click on things. There's going to be clickbait on there, which is going to be quite distracting. And so that is a signal that maybe the source is a little bit less reputable. I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad source, but the more things that you have to click on in terms of adverts and so on, the less you may kind of trust the quality of the website. As well as that, it says here that there's a disclaimer. So make sure that you're reading the information that's peripheral to the essay as well. And the disclaimer says the work has been submitted by a student. Okay, it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, but it does make you question it a little bit. Is it a GCSE student, an A-level student, a university student? You don't know what the credentials of this person are, so that might make you question the quality of the source. And then it says, this is not an example of the work produced by our essay writing service. You can view samples of our professional work here. And up here it says place and order. So these bits of information are showing you that actually this essay is here to pull you into the website, to attract you to the website, and then to convince you that it's probably a good idea to place an order for an essay on the topic that you need, and you pay your money and someone else writes your essay for you. Okay, that's a really, really bad idea. You're not sure of the quality of the essay that you're going to get back, and as well as that, it might be kind of phrased, or it might have different requirements to what you're needing to produce. So for example, if you're doing the course that I teach, which is AQA English Literature, Part B, you've got to achieve certain assessment objectives. Now, this website doesn't necessarily know what those assessment objectives are. They haven't necessarily looked at different examples of essays that are written for this particular exam board, because it's a global, an international website. So be really careful if you're looking at sources like this. I'm not saying discount the essay that's on this page completely, but there are lots of bits of information on this page which might make me question the reasons why this essay has been put online, and therefore question the reliability of it as a source. Another source that's been put up that I found in my online search is something from Bartleby Research. Now, if you're just looking at this page, what you can see is it's a lot cleaner than the previous website that we looked at. There isn't lots of clickbait, there aren't lots of adverts on there to distract you, and that suggests that the source of funding is probably from a university or from a national institution of some kind. Now, it doesn't give you a huge amount of information about the writer of this essay on the page. So what I've done is I've just gone onto Wikipedia and I've searched Bartleby Research. And what it's brought up here is bartleby.com, an electronic text archive. And as you read through, you then see that it's funded by Columbia University. If you follow that link, you'll find out that Columbia University is a really well-respected academic institution, which is giving you a bit more evidence that you can trust this source. So this is probably a source that you would be able to read and use, and I suppose the last thing that you need to do when you're evaluating a source is, as you read it, think, does this make sense? Does this hold water? Does this read like an academic text the way my teachers taught me to write it? And I suppose that would be your last kind of part of the checklist for working out whether you should trust a particular online source or not. So in summary, here's my top tips for evaluating online sources. First of all, check the author. So make sure you know who this person is and what kind of background they have, what their credentials are. Are they a teacher? Do they have a university degree? Do they work for an academic institution like a university or the British Library or something like that? Also, check the platform that you're using. So again, just Google it to find out a bit more information about it. Is this from a university? Is it from a library? Is it from a school, for example? Or is it something that's trying to pull you in to make money, possibly by selling essays and that kind of thing? And if you know you're going to need to use this reference, perhaps in a bit of coursework or something like that, make sure you take really precise notes as you're doing it. So copy the web address, the author, the title of the article, and the date you accessed it, because those are all pieces of information you're going to need when you start to reference your essay. And I'll do a separate video on how to reference. So thank you very much for listening, and just remember that you've got this whole wealth of information at your fingertips on the internet, and it's wonderful and it's brilliant and it's really helpful, but make sure that you read it critically and you evaluate to check that you're using the right kind of sources in your work.